do you say his name?
You know, that's a good question.
Oh yeah, it's Yevgeny. Oh, we're alive. Okay,
We're live.
we're live. So
And we're figuring out how to speak Russian, you
that's
guys.
right. That's absolutely right. We are learning to speak the Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we read and I think his name is
Yevgeny Zamyatin
Zemetian or
is
Zementian or
is
something.
probably as close as we're gonna get.
It's probably as close as we are very Anglo here at Resistance Reads.
Absolutely.
So we read this book, and it is 1920.
Yeah, it was written in sources vary from 1919 to 1921, but I think if you say 1920, you're splitting the difference, and that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, and then yeah. So this book is also widely considered kind of like a progenitor of Brave New World in 1984, and it's considered like one of the first dystopian novels.
Yeah, like dystopian political novels, I guess.
Dystopian political novels.
Yeah.
Certainly, we have like earlier works like Gulliver's Travels, which deals with
Right.
both utopian and dystopian kind of stuff.
Absolutely. The Time Machine as well.
The Time Machine, yes, right? The Gorlocks or whatever.
Morlocks.
Morlocks, yeah.
Morlocks is important, man, because they're also characters in the X-Men novels that live in the tunnels underneath New York City.
And in Futurama.
And in Futurama. Not as good as the X-Men, but still there.
Yes. All right, so I guess we'll start. We're going to talk about the author's background a little bit, because he's actually like a really interesting guy.
He's an interesting guy, and his interesting perspective on regimes and authoritarianism, I think, are very heavily reflected in the work itself, in We itself. Yevgeny, and this is just from Wikipedia, he's the son of an Orthodox priest, but lost his faith in Christianity at an early age and became a Bolshevik. He was a member of the party's pre-revolutionary underground, but then fell out of favor with the ruling party pretty early on after its ascension, so around 1919 or so. He was also really disenfranchised with how his work, his literary output, was not being well received, not given the push that the party normally did give its like pre-revolutionary acolytes, and channeled a lot of that frustration into this work and into a play that he wrote over the course of like 7 or 8 years, and tried to have staged in about 1928, around the time that he also ended up leaving Russia, from what I understand. His disenfranchisement with the party mostly comes down to them not responding to his artistic output. And he couldn't ever figure out what it was about his writing that wasn't connecting with the authority. But I think our take on this book is probably going to shine a light on that. I think he was probably a man of conflicting desires. I think he wanted to express his reservations about authoritarianism, and I think he also wanted to be part of the party. He was an early member of it. He was really bought in before their ascendancy, and then never received any of the benefit of it, And I think that is there's a very strong parallel to the main character of this book, D503, who is also a prominent member of his party, but begins to have a schism in his own mind with that. And that's brought about by, I think, probably one of the oldest cliches in literature, a woman. A woman comes along and disrupts his worldview, and he has a seismic schism about that. I think Yevgeny's real life is probably more interesting than his fictional creation, and that might be of import when we think about why he had to eventually beg the Kremlin to let him leave, because he was able to get his work published in the in the Anglophone world, I can't remember if it was a U.S. publisher or if it was an English publisher. I think it's probably
English.
English, yeah. They translated his work in 1924, and it became of note. It was translated into French a little while after that. Eventually, it's translated into Czech around 1926 or so, and that's when he starts to get a lot of heat from the Kremlin and the party in general. And that is also when his play is like refused staging in any prominent theater, and also when he has to beg them to let him leave because he would rather be in exile than not be able to produce any artistic output. Mm-hmm. And he was given permission to leave, and so he moved to Paris, and then
he dies in squalor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out for him.
It does not work out for him.
Yeah.
Paris is not all dreams.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, if you're going to move to Paris and be a middling author, that's not the place to do that, I guess is what I'm saying. Paris has a insane literary output, especially in that era when Americans were also living there and publishing, Fitzgerald and Hemingway, notably.
Yeah.
But, what else do I want to say about this in the intro? It was as Michael said, a progenitor to Brave New World and 1984. Interestingly, Orwell accused Huxley of cribbing heavily from this. And Huxley, who was a lit teacher, I think maybe Orwell's literary professor, denied having ever read that, and Orwell called him a liar for it.
Yeah.
Which is fucking cool.
Which is also really interesting because, like, this book centers around a diary and a love affair.
Yeah.
And what does 1984 surround? A diary and a love affair.
Orwell was very open with how much he drew from this book, which is the difference. I think that's an important point that I left out in that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so some world notes, because this is a piece of spec fiction. It takes place in kind of an indeterminate future time.
It's like 600 or 800 years in our future.
Yeah, it's something like that, yeah. We know it takes place in the far future after a 200 years war that destroyed much of the world. It's called the United State, or the One State. Mm-hmm. The United State singular. Me and Matt talked about this, actually, adding S's into my summary. No, it's just United States.
My translation of it never had United State. It was always just One State.
One State. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we read two different translations.
They were not. Anyway, never mind.
It's ruled by a dictator called the Benefactor, who we meet at the end of the book. Mm-hmm. And so, except for 2 free periods during the day, everyone has to follow this kind of this timetable.
Yeah.
It's basically like an Excel sheet on steroids, it sounds like to me. Yeah. Where everyone must raise their glass to eat and chew 50 times.
Yep.
Exactly together.
Everyone's extremely regimented. He compares it to like subway timetables.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that, like, man, I wish trains ran on time like that.
Well, they do in some countries, but not in ours.
Not here.
But they have 2 free periods of, it's like 90 minutes a piece or something like a day.
Yeah, it's like a free, they call it a free hour, but I think it's actually 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That might be right.
And it's like twice a day. Mm-hmm. And they all live in glass houses.
Yes.
Which, as you were kind of saying, is like we kind of do that with social media these days.
Yeah,
everything is revealed.
Everybody,
right?
There's like a social media panopticon that we all live in. Even if you're not actively participating in it, someone else might be filming. Like, I was at the gym the other day, and this lady just like set up her phone to like record her workout, but I was like in the background. I was just like, nah, that's cool. I'm gonna go do a different machine now.
Photobombing?
No, I didn't want to be on screen.
Photobombing the fitness model?
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I don't want any of that. I don't want to be, Coldplay coupled or anything like that.
Yeah. Right. But they only pull the shades down for their scheduled sex.
Yeah, which they get a pink ticket for.
They get a pink ticket you have to register for, and you get control of who you have sex with. Mm-hmm. And procreation is all very heavily.
They assign people to you.
Yeah. You can request.
You can also request people.
You can request people. Yeah. But it's like super mechanical, like, like sex is for procreation only kind of sex.
Yeah.
There's a giant wall that surrounds their civilization, and outside of the wall is this wild land where the Medi live.
Yeah.
So, which is they're part of the rebellion, which we'll get into in a little bit. So,
Did you say Medi? Mine said Methy, like Mephistopheles kind of thing.
Oh, was it
Yeah.
Medi?
Mine was
Okay.
Mephi. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Well, either way, Mephi or Medi, either
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
So they're the resistance group, though. What and he describes
And
them.
they're also like Cro-Magnon or something?
I mean, he kind of makes it sound like, and I actually think this is where Huxley draws from, because have you read Brave New
I
World?
haven't. No.
Okay, and so in Brave New World, it centers around these kind of primitive savages, as it were, who come into this highly eugenic controlled civilization, and they're there to be kind of like a tourist display, very much modeled after like the human zoos
Oh
of the
God,
early
yeah,
20th
back in like
century.
Coney Island, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and obviously Huxley is like pointing to this as like messed up, right?
Yeah.
But so anyway, he describes them as like these people who live outside the walls, like hairy and kind of primitive, and they're always naked and all this other stuff. And then he, of course, he has like
Don't worry, guys. Their boobs don't have any hair on them.
Apparently, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just the nipple poking out of the hair. I
Yeah.
guess I don't know.
No, I think the boobs were supposed to be naked. Like,
That's right.
The whole boob. You
The
know?
whole boob, yeah.
It's a horny book. Weirdly enough,
it is a super horny book.
Yeah.
It is like there is just fucking everywhere.
guy's obsessed, and it's like the anyway. Never mind. We'll go into that.
We'll get into yeah. All right, so synopsis. So D503, he's the main character. Everyone is assigned a number in this world.
And it corresponds to their
ciphers.
And it corresponds to their apartments, which is
yeah,
interesting.
Right. So you are your apartment, right?
It's like New York. Oh.
Yeah. So he gives us a kind of glimpse of this hyper-rationalistic world, which we already kind of went over. But everything is math. Everything is perfect reason. And he says we abandon poetry because poetry is imprecise, and now our poetry is mathematics. And he reads multiplication tables for comfort in some cases, right? Yeah. And then. So he's, first he kind of goes to this lecture, right? And, you kind of meet some of the characters, including 090, which is like his primary sexual partner / companion.
Yeah, girlfriend-ish for sure.
Girlfriend-ish for sure. They don't really have girlfriends because everyone, gets a pink ticket and sleeps with other people and other, So there's that, it's kind of, there's not really a family unit because they kind of think that family units are problematic.
And it's kind of like, it's weird, at the beginning of the book, he's in like a polycule. It's like him and 090 and R13, who has weird racial codings that we can talk about later. But at one point, there's a conversation about how they are a triangle. And I was like, oh, that's interesting in a world where they're trying to keep you from forming bonds that are too close where you will develop a soul. A polycule is a good way to keep it a little bit lighter and everybody's a little bit less attached, but sexually satisfied.
Yeah. Yep. However, he goes to this kind of talk. There's many talks throughout the book of the perfections of the one party and the state and mathematics and all this stuff. And he sees this girl, I-330, and he's like, whoa, she is hot stuff.
Yeah, she plays music. She plays the piano.
Yeah.
And wears a slinky black dress, which nobody else got to do because they're doing comparison of music from the past and music of the future. So she was in costume.
Right.
But it made her stand out too, which is why he notices her so strongly.
So of course he gets really enamored with her and they end up going on a date. And they go in this place called the Ancient House, which I guess is like a museum where they show the old chaotic ways of life and living. Yeah. But that's where she likes to take her sexual partners.
Yeah, because it's brick, She doesn't have to get a pass, She doesn't have to get a blinds pass. So she can just go there and fuck if she wants to, or do whatever, smoke. She wears a cute dress. She puts on a cute yellow dress and big broad brimmed hat and is basically cosplaying as a early 20th century lady. And,
yeah.
And he's like, don't try to impress me with your originality. It's so selfish.
Yeah. So he says no to her. She tries to make a sexual advance and he says no. So she just calls up somebody else, is like, hey, want to come get laid?
Yeah.
That's what she does. So And then of course, she's doing illegal things like she's not supposed to be dressing up, she's not supposed to be drinking, she's not supposed to be smoking. But like he doesn't. He's like super enamored with her, and he can't get it out of his mind. To the point where he starts having dreams, which in this world is considered a mental illness.
Yes.
You're not supposed to dream. It's supposed to be a sign of dysfunction if you're starting to dream. And he basically has what is essentially a wet dream.
Yeah, it's a wet dream.
It's totally
This guy is
sap running everywhere, and
this guy's fucking 14, you guys.
Yeah, he is like about as mature as a 14-year-old.
It's tedious. Sorry, that's too much opinion right Go on.
All right. But then like 090, his regular partner is very clearly jealous of I-330, and you know, in the meantime, like he's supposed to have a pink ticket day with her, and at one point he's like, she like asks for sex, and he's like, it's not the scheduled time for our sexual relations, you must wait. And then he can't get it up when it's time for, because he's so busy thinking about I-330 that 090 is like just no longer interesting. So then they go to kind of a public execution. A person is committed to crimes against the state. I read that passage multiple times. I couldn't figure out exactly what they had done.
I could barely figure it out too, man. It was obtuse to the point of being indecipherable as far as I was concerned.
But I think the key point of this part is that they have a vaporization machine.
Yes, and his friend R13 was reading an ode that he had written because he's a poet. He's like an official state poet. And he was having trouble getting through it. He was like looking stricken by it, and then he tried to talk to D503 about that before it, and D was just like, "Hey man, great job reading that sick poem about killing people who are enemies of the state," and he's, you know, his friend's ashen looking, and
he does not. He's like, because they're you know, these are public displays, right? They're forced to watch executions, so this is. You know, R13 is not all about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So then, of course, I-330, asks him back, essentially, make sure that she's got a little pink ticket day so he can't refuse for sex and seduction. He gets it. She gets him kind of drunk, so then that he just kind of like lets his wild side out.
I mean, she gives him absinthe.
It is definitely absinthe. I was like, is that the green liquid? Is that absinthe?
It must be.
It must be. Yeah. It must be. So this all thing kind of like basically begins to erode his identity and his faith in the system, because he's like tempted to do these things that are against the law and against the rules, and suddenly he's like missing he's like late now all of a sudden to his things, and that everyone thinks it's really weird.
He's not focused. He's like the head NASA guy basically for these.
He's building this spaceship that's super important.
Yeah, and he's like not being. His colleagues are like, "Hey, man, you stopped talking in the middle of that sentence there," and he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I'm too horny." He doesn't say that, but that's the takeaway.
That's basically it, right? And she actually has a way of getting around the schedule she has like this friend who can give him like a black market certificate, like basically a get off of work for free.
She's got a doctor in her pocket, man.
She's sleeping with everybody. Like, anyone who can kind of give her what she needs, she kind of does.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about some of the very blatant sexism in this book.
Later on.
Absolutely. But yeah, he can't stop thinking about her. He talks to a doctor, and the doctor says, apparently a soul has formed in you.
Yep.
And they discuss this new experimental procedure that's not quite perfection yet. But D503 is too important, building the ship called the Integral, and they don't want to disrupt that. So he kind of gives them a pass and say, well, maybe if we perfect this thing, we don't want to interrupt the work.
Yeah.
So he gets off and kind of is just like, well, you're sick, you're having issues. You've got an imagination that's dangerous. We don't want you to have an imagination.
But it's useful to us right now.
So use it, because you need to build a ship, right?
Yeah.
So he goes and finds I-330, and there's like some confusion. Like something is going on, and like she's obviously tied up in something, and he can't quite figure it out. and he's really frustrated. He can't always find her when he wants to find her. She just is always missing, or she's always at the ancient house, or all these other places. And in the meantime, he gets a note from 090, his basically his sweetheart, and it's kind of a breakup letter.
Yeah.
But a couple of days later, he comes home and she's like sitting there on his bed and is like, "Knock me up."
Yeah.
Which is also illegal. You can't just get pregnant.
I think it probably has to be scheduled. They don't say it's why it's illegal, but
yeah,
it's heavily implied, and I'm assuming it's just because they want to do the eugenics as good as possible.
Right, because they definitely have a eugenic system.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
The perfection is a big focus here.
Mm-hmm.
So because this is illegal, he's like, "You're gonna get murdered. You're gonna get executed. I don't know if I want to do that." But then, like, he feels bad for her and kind of gets her pregnant anyway.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of on this regular routine walk, and this guy kind of like steps out of line and gets whipped. And then a woman screams, and D503 thinks it's I-330, and he like leaps out to try to intervene. And
it's not. He realizes it's not. So he's like,
"Oh, never mind. Go ahead and whip as you will.
Yeah. And then he gets like taken away by the doctors anyway.
Yeah, and then they declare him as, quote, sick. "Oh, it's not your fault. You're just sick. We'll just let you off." The amount of times this guy gets like let off the hook for violating the rules makes me think that the rules are not quite as strict.
It's one of the flaws in the book, I would say. Yeah.
Or it's just that he's too important.
I guess he's too important, but yeah.
So then the next time he sees I-330, they have a number of these kind of conversations. She directly asks about the spaceship, and he's like, "Really? Why are you asking about the spaceship?" And then comes the day of unanimity, and this is like their big election day. And on their big election day, everyone just kind of just naturally votes for the benefactor, and then they're all sitting around and expecting that outcome. And D503 is kind of like mopey. He's like, "I don't know if I really fit into this thing anymore. I'm kind of like, I'm doing all these illegal things. I'm getting people pregnant. I'm smoking. I'm drinking. I'm having sex without my pink ticket. I don't really know where I fit anymore."
Yeah.
And like the vote gets called, and thousands of people do not vote for the benefactor, which has never happened before.
Instant riot.
It's an instant riot.
It's like within a split second, everybody's just like frothing at the mouth and beating each other with chairs and shit like that.
Yeah, it just goes crazy. And he rescues I-330 and
from R13.
From R13.
My interpretation of that was because R13 early on, when he's like, "Hey man, there's this hot chick named I-330 and she likes me, and we did smoking and drinking together." And R13's like, "Whoa, you too?" And he's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
And then like he sees like R13 carrying her out of the fray, but he just follows her, beats R13 over the head, and takes her.
Yeah.
I interpreted
like
that
style.
Yeah, exactly. I interpreted that as like him just being insanely jealous in the moment. R13 was saving her too. He's probably in on the whole thing. He hates executions, loves poetry, and knows I-330. So he's probably one of her guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Either way, he does an act of violence like at the spur of the moment.
Yep.
Over this one girl.
Yep. And then what's really interesting is the next day, the news declares that the benefactor was unanimously elected, and the rebel votes just simply don't count.
They don't count. Why would they count?
Why would they count?
No, they don't know us.
So after this, D503 gets taken to the other side of the wall by I-330, and this is where it's Memphis. Okay, I just had a typo. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I-330 actually suggests that he might be related to them because of his hairy hands, which he is not happy about.
He's not happy about it, and it's like constant in his mind, his like shaggy hands. He's always thinking about his shaggy hands.
Yeah. He's like, "I have too much hair on my hands."
Don't masturbate so much, bro. Science, medical science.
That's medical science, yeah. But yeah, so it turns out that the rebels are planning to steal the spaceship that he is in fact working on and then use it to upend the government, because if they have this powerful spaceship, there'll be nothing stopping them.
Yeah.
Right after this, he gets back from the other side of the wall. He's kind of like debating on what the hell he should do. Should he participate in all this? And he runs into O. And O is very pregnant and very thrilled. And then D503 is like, yeah, but remember, you're going to get executed. You probably need some help. Why don't you check in with my new side chick and, get some help? And of course, she's like, basically like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Because,
I don't want to talk to your new girlfriend.
I don't want to talk to your new girlfriend, and then takes off. And then it because there's a series of rebels who are arrested. So I think there was 9 or 10 of them who were arrested and executed. So then I-330 shows up and it's like, hey, we got to steal this ship like right now, because things are going south really fast.
But then he's like, we got to wait another day for some reason. I forget why.
There was like some repair. No, someone destroyed a cockpit, or they messed up they messed up something on the ship.
Something, yeah.
And then so it delayed it or whatever. And in the midst of this, like talking about this, the technique, this kind of brain surgery to remove the soul and the imagination has been perfected. And with all the surgeons and the surge of rebellion going on, the one state and the benefactor are like, hey.
That's why it's postponed. That's the reason. I remember now. Yeah.
So they're like, hey, everybody has to undergo this technique, this surgery.
The operation.
The operation, yeah, so that they can be perfectly rational again. It's just a lobotomy, essentially, it sounds like to me.
Yep. But with x-rays, guys.
Yeah, so they begin rounding up people because of this, quote, plague of the imagination, and force a procedure on people. Then there's you, who is like this older woman.
She's like the security, or like the... You know how in big apartment buildings they'll sometimes have someone downstairs at like a main desk? She's like that lady.
Right.
Which so she reads all the mail and stuff like that.
Right. She doesn't have a number, so she's kind of...
just you.
She's like just you, which I think is the name of the building or whatever. But she talks about how these operations are great. We've strapped down the children. We've basically lobotomized them, and then she constantly calls D503 a child, which is kind of apt.
Yeah, that's appropriate, really.
And then she's telling them all about the wonders of this procedure, and D503 is actually kind of bought into it. He's like, wait, so all of this stuff that's been really bugging me about me, like, going and smoking and drinking and my lust that I'm having a hard time controlling and reining in, like, there's a procedure, I can get that taken out of me, and I can, like, have the problem solved.
Yeah.
And, like, he goes to tell I-330, he's like, I think I'm going to get this procedure, like, I'm going to go up there and do it, and she's like, you have to either choose me or the procedure.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I choose you. And then a lot of people are resisting the procedure. 090 finds D503 and is like, I can't have this procedure. They can't know that I'm pregnant. We have to, like, get out. I gotta get out of here. So he actually sends her to I-330, and this time she listens and is smuggled out beyond the wall.
Yeah.
And she's probably the only one who actually gets a happy ending.
She is. I really do.
Everyone
she's
else,
out
not
there
so much.
in the green wilderness, like, having her baby and, like, chilling with rebels,
Yep.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yep. And then...
Sounds like living on Yavin.
Yeah, it does sound like living on Yavin. And then the United States announces that it will now kill anyone who doesn't comply with the procedure. It's no longer optional. It is now mandatory.
And so then there's like a fucking revolution, and people are just like fucking in the streets and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's like protests and there's riots and all kinds of stuff, and it's chaos because they're trying to rein everything in. And then they get on the ship on the day of the test run and they try to steal it. That fails because somehow the crew knew what was going on. They show up and they're like, we know exactly what you're doing here.
Yeah.
We don't agree.
Yeah.
But D503 is like, screw it. I'm going to crash the ship. And then another engineer, basically the second in command next down from him, stops him because he's like the only other person.
Yeah, just like cautions him and takes over, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hits him in the head and then he wakes up and then he's like back at home again. Again, not in trouble, which is...
Dude,
very interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Interesting. Like, there's no consequences to this dude's actions, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and then D503 thinks that, it must have been you. You can get into my apartment. She must be reading my journals. It's probably she who has betrayed me. And that's why the theft of the ship didn't work. So he decides to kill her.
Yeah, he's just gonna murder her.
He's gonna murder her. So she goes into her room and then she's like sitting there and he lowers the blind, and she thinks, oh, he wants me.
He's gonna fuck me.
He's gonna fuck me. So
finally, I'm gonna get laid.
Yeah, because
her thought.
Yeah, she actually
just tears her clothes off.
Yeah, she just tears her clothes off, and he's got like, what did he say he had? Like, it was like a metal.
It was a bar from the ship that had failed during the testing, and he saved it because he was going to analyze its structural integrity. But then he just wraps the like plans of the ship around it to bring it home. And then in that moment, he's like, I could use this to
smash her head in.
Right.
So,
and he's about to do it. And then he starts laughing because she just like rips her clothes off instead of like being afraid of him.
And she's beyond, he says she's beyond childbearing years, so she's probably like late middle age.
Yeah. I always assumed she was like, like a school marm.
Yeah, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But he's like laughing at her and puts down the metal pipe, and then
gets a call from the benefactor.
Yeah, and she, in this moment, she's like, I didn't betray you, I'm in love with you.
Yeah.
Apparently everyone's in love with this man.
I don't know why. Dude, the descriptions of him are like a young Eugene Levy, which is not like unsexy exactly, but it's not like, I don't know why these chicks are falling all over themselves for him, you know?
Yeah, he's got like 3 chicks chasing him around,
he's
right?
like, yeah, whatever, it's weird.
So he gets called from the benefactor, like directly from the benefactor.
Yeah.
And the benefactor explains, freedom is miserable. So the whole point of the human experience is to find happiness. We have all this technology to find happiness. Now we finally arrived. We have this machine that can give you the procedure to make you happy. Why are you throwing this all away? Here is this one of their top engineers of their society, and maybe that's why he's so appealing. He's like a person of means and power.
Maybe you know what? Everything does revolve around power in this society, so that's probably what it is.
Yeah. So, and he's a man of great talent. But and then he says, he says that like the rebels are just using you. Yeah. The rebels are clearly using you because you're this incredible man of talent. They don't have any interest in you. This woman that you're enamored with, she doesn't love you. And he has kind of an emotional breakdown over it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's from like cognitive dissonance, because the whole book you're kind of like in his cognitive dissonance. He's going back and forth and back and forth.
Everything is very vague and obtuse throughout the entire book, and it does seem to be like a perhaps like completely accurate description of just living in cognitive dissonance all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I suppose we all kind of do to some degree or another, but this guy is like, he's like James Dean in that scene from Rebel Without a Cause where they're like, what are you rebelling against? And he's like, what do you got? You're tearing me apart. Like that. That's the emotional register of this book throughout. Rebel Without a Cause is a masterpiece because it kind of slowly builds to that and crescendos. This book starts there and stays there.
Yeah.
Sorry, once again, I'm editorializing during the synopsis.
That's okay. It's all right. We're almost done with the synopsis anyway.
Yeah.
After this, after he has his little talk, like the next day, someone blows up the wall.
Yeah.
And all these birds are like flying in, and it must be a really tall wall that the birds couldn't go over it or something.
I was never sure if it was a dome or if it was just an insane wall.
Yeah.
Throughout.
I'm not sure either. It might be a dome.
He doesn't describe things very
clearly, yeah.
Or ever, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he does. D503 ultimately concludes that IO 330 it did in fact used him, and that the benefactor was right. Mm-hmm. And he just he realizes that the cop that's been kind of following around is also part of the resistance. He realizes that
he straight up confesses to the cop. He turns himself in, and the cop's like, bro, I know. I'm part of the resistance.
Yeah. And it turns out it seems like everybody around him is actually part of the resistance.
Yeah.
And so he's he gets super depressed because he feels all used up and everything. So he's like, all right, I'm going to get the procedure done. Mm-hmm. And he does.
Yeah.
And so he gets the procedure done. And afterwards, he doesn't even recognize I-330, who is a dozen others publicly executed and tortured in front of him.
Yeah.
He doesn't even remember writing his own journals. He's like, who wrote those things? But he knows that it definitely was me. It's the same. It's my handwriting, but I don't remember doing that. And he knows everything is okay though, because in the end, reason trumps everything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the main synopsis of the book.
Mm-hmm.
You're just itching to go, so
Dude, it's just so.
It was a bad book, you
It's
guys.
not very good.
It's
you guys.
It is like, so we picked this one because the synopsis sounds amazing, and
With
like
a very brief description of the events of the book, like on a back cover, or I read it in the library catalog, and I was like, that sounds perfect.
right, perfect for our show.
Yeah.
Also, like, Orwell and Huxley and all of these other dystopian writers of like the 30s and 40s and 50s are definitely pulling themes and ideas from this book.
Yeah.
So it was like a natural thing for us to be like, we should read the origin. But it is so badly written.
Dude, okay, so I think Michael and I read different translations of it. I think your translation was even worse than mine, because he was reading me passages from it that he'd like clipped out, and it was almost unintelligible. Mine was
so bad.
Mine was like, what if J.D. Salinger took some laudanum and then sat down to write Catcher in the Rye? Like, there are moments of beauty and like obvious artistic talent in this 2020-ish 2021 translation, I want to say, but there are also, guys, the prose is obtuse to the point of like opaqueness. You had to read chapters over and over again to understand what was happening. I did too. This is a 200-page book that took me 3 weeks to read because one, whenever I thought about reading it, I got sad. And two, whenever I was reading it, I had to reread it because he doesn't describe things so much as he like evokes things. Does that make sense? Like there's like this constant evoking of negation. He like says one thing and then he negates that thing, and he says another thing and he negates that.
Yeah.
And it does keep you off balance, and it keeps you in a state of anxiety and like paranoia. But
nothing happens to him either.
Yeah, you don't know what's happening at any given moment.
And he gets everything and he wants. He gets sexy time with the fun lady, and then he gets his perfect rational
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about trying to follow the plot of it. Also, the text is problematic all on its own.
Yeah,
the events of this book suck.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. This is a 14-year-old boy who gets everything he wants, including going to outer space on his own volition, due to his own merit. Like, fuck that. And that's why when I was talking about Yevgeny's biography, I was talking about the fact that this really feels like it's pulling from his personal experience, or rather his wish fulfillment. This feels like,
it's a wish
it feels like he's a self-insert in this book. Because he's a very special boy who is so smart. So smart, you guys. And all the girls really want to fuck him because he's so cool and smart. And like the benefactor is his buddy, and he just gets to go and talk to him at the end. If at the end of 1984, bro gets to go and talk to Big Brother, like in person, and Big Brother pleads with him to like be part of my government because you're so smart.
Instead
and cool.
of torturing him,
instead of throwing him in jail. Like, yeah, that's what happens in this book. And like everybody around him is like constantly watching him, but not because they want to trap him, because they want to protect him.
Yeah.
From his own base instincts, I guess.
So yeah,
he gets to like, he's basically corrupted by a cool girl, like TM, like the cool, the problematic, like, model of coolness that girls were doing like 5 to 10 years ago, just like being edgy and cynical and like smoking and dressing sexy. And
the flapper
like
girl.
Sydney Sweeney.
Girl.
Like Sydney Sweeney
yeah.
seduces him
basically.
into like betraying his people and his government. And he thinks it's a good idea for a little while until he comes to his senses and realizes, no, the party is who I should be serving with my artistic and or brilliant brain.
Yeah.
Also, he talks about how much he loves math, but doesn't ever has no curiosity whatsoever, but is constantly talking in like purple prose, to the point where you can't understand what he's saying because he's using too many adjectives, but not to describe anything real, just his emotions.
Yeah.
And okay, that's my rant.
This book reminds me of when I was 15 years old. I sat down to write was essentially like a kind of a lit RPG starring me as the main character.
No, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow. Yeah.
The first time anybody ever thought of that.
Yeah, that's right. So I sat down to do this after playing like many hours of Final Fantasy and thought I would make myself the main character, and it was so bad.
What if I was Cloud, you guys?
Yeah, that's what if I was Cloud, right? And I was so bad and so self-indulgent that I wrote 100 pages and I still have them to remind myself of how far I've come as a writer. But that felt like his writing felt like what I was doing when I was 15, and I had given up on it because even at 15 I recognized it was a bad thing.
It was self-indulgent and bad. No one would want to read it. Of course not.
That's right. So
yeah.
So anyway, I mean, that all said, of course,
there are ideas.
There are ideas in here, and our job here is not just to either praise or rail on books, but rather to look at what is going on politically here and what a past fucking couple of weeks we've had.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
With 2 fucking murders by ICE.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, of course, we have to talk about those. So if you're watching this in the future, we're on the 26th of January 2026. So this fucking January has been a fuck.
Yeah.
It's been really bad.
Sucks balls for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, some of my notes here. The one thing I will say is, like, until the end, it was really interesting watching his identity kind of crumble in a way until he like refused to let it crumble. Because it was like you see these moments where I thought, going down the vein of reading something like 1984 or Brave New World or one of these other, or Fahrenheit 451,
sure,
all these really famous, classic, extremely well written books.
All very stylistically different.
All very stylistically different,
yeah.
And all very vivid and beautiful in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking of those. I thought, okay, well, when is he going to finally give up the cognitive dissonance? And it was interesting watching, but then disappointed that like, nothing ever happened.
And it makes sense again when you think about the author's biography. He never got over his cognitive dissonance.
No, he didn't.
He wanted to be an important part of the Communist Party in Russia,
mm-hmm.
and like a member of the USSR in good standing,
mm-hmm.
and he wasn't able to do that, and he never got over it.
Yeah,
and so this is like, if his life could have gone any way, this is how he would have wanted it to go.
Exactly, like. He fucked around and then he got welcomed back and basically begged to become back
because he was so special.
Because he was a special little
boy.
Yeah.
Right? If you come from a culture that has like a literary tradition as strong as Russia's, I'm sure that would be a point of pride for you, as potent as like the first cosmonaut or something like that, which is again what this character is. Mm-hmm. He's like the guy who designs the rocket ship and then pilots the rocket ship. Like, he's a super cosmonaut. And 1920, he's like, that's a really cool thing to imagine. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not trying to take away from his ability to imagine a future or anything like that. I'm just saying that I think he longed to be Dostoevsky, but wasn't talented enough to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think he blamed politics to a certain degree, but I think he was fundamentally just very confused about why that wasn't happening, because as far as he was concerned, he was like
a genius.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but on the cognitive dissonance point too, like we're living in a time when there are a lot of people who have supported this administration who no doubt have an incredible cognitive dissonance. They want to be a part of the big thing that's happening and all this change, but then especially, and look, guys, like, you have to make sure we say that, like, fascism and terror for people of color has been around since the beginning of this country, since before the beginning of this country.
Yeah, man, since, like, I don't know, what, like, Belgium or the Netherlands started fucking around, like...
Very early, right?
Yeah.
But it's like what's become real for white people recently is seeing not only was it 2 white people who got killed in the last couple of weeks, but it's also 2 white citizens.
Yeah.
And so suddenly there's a lot of people who were supporting this administration who suddenly are forced to confront their cognitive dissonance. And it's going to be...
Or are experiencing maybe for the first time actual cognitive dissonance?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Where, and, some of them, what you're going to see is that some people are going to be doubling down. They are going to say things like, we absolutely must support this administration. They're doing the right things, and they will find every excuse in the book to do it. This is why there's so much character assassination attempts at these individuals, or kind of the justification for, the complete state-sanctioned violence with no limits, which is what this is.
I mean, Renee Good was not doing she didn't nail the 3-point turn, you guys.
I know.
And so she had to die.
Yeah.
Make sure you practice your turns when you're taking your driver's test, And
the other
your
guy,
life could depend on it.
And the other guy, what's his name? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Sorry, guys.
Well, I was reading about it the other day, and they hadn't released his name. So.
Yeah, I read it this morning, and his name is I've spaced
hold
it.
On,
but
let me look it up for a second.
But you'll look it up. Why I'm just saying. I mean, he literally was filming someone getting shoved and helped a girl up, and then got like fucking shot 10 times for it. So it's like
on the ground.
On the ground, they had disarmed him before they shot him. So, you're talking about a complete exercise in state violence here. And so, that cognitive dissonance is all around. And, I think it's really important that if you see someone out there struggling with their cognitive dissonance, be like, look, it's okay to admit that you were wrong about this, and start building coalitions to be like, this has been too far for you.
Alex Pretty.
Sorry, Alex.
Rip. No, like, respect. We're sorry.
Yeah, we're like, seriously.
Yeah.
Hopefully these individuals who lost their lives, it's not in vain, and that this is a turning point from what is obviously a authoritarianism and fascism, quite frankly, at this point. Like, a lot of people are saying, well, you throw that word around. I was like, at this point, there's no other word.
No, man. Like, the thing is, conservatives were calling liberals fascist for a long time just because we were like trying to like politely. Okay, I'm not a liberal. I'm a leftist. I'm like, fuck, liberals are too centrist for me, for my taste. But like, people were just trying to like politely request that racists stop saying racist shit. That's not fascism. That was never fascism. That was just conversation.
That's accountability.
It was a conversation about respect. And so they were the ones who were throwing around the fascist label for a long time. And now we're saying, you guys who are executing people in the streets without due process are performing fascist totalitarian tactics, and they're getting upset about it.
Well, in the violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah.
That internal memo from ICE that says we can go into your house and do whatever the fuck we want.
Right.
Even the NRA is pissed right now.
And I have to say, if you live in a state where you can stand your ground, you should stand your fucking ground. Defend your homes. Defend the people in your houses. Defend your homes. Don't get shot in them, like has been happening to black people for decades now, but was on the rise in the last decade. Now it can happen to us too. And sometimes it takes the threat being really personal to motivate people, but that's motivation and you should act on it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And, it's like that old, Woody Guthrie adapted the poem into a song, right? First they came for the communists, but I wasn't a communist.
The classic song.
So I wasn't a communist, so I ignored it. Then they came for the socialists, and then they came for the Jews.
I wasn't a socialist, so I ignored it. Yeah.
So on and so forth. But that's like, we've been ignoring
That
it.
is how it goes.
That's how it goes.
That's a song about human nature, and it's sad, and Zionists were using it for a long time as a rallying cry, but I think it applies to a lot of people. Not just Zionists.
It does.
Yep. And don't let that association taint it for you. Like, sometimes it takes things getting really personal to make them, actionable.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard, and I think it's just partly the way we're wired as a species to essentially try to keep your head down and do the best you can and ignore the craziness that's going around because you're trying to survive, you're trying to put food on your table, and certainly capitalism gives you lots of bread and circuses all day long.
Well, it's also a pretty successful strategy.
It is a super successful strategy.
That's what he employs in this book, and it works for him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But
So,
we shouldn't model our behavior after D503.
no, definitely not.
It's too horny and too disorganized.
And also, D503 is the example of what not to do.
Absolutely he is.
You know, versus like, you know, Winston Smith from 1984. He actually does resist and rebel. Now, at the end, he is tortured to the point where he's brainwashed again.
Yeah.
But he does really actively try to fight back and resist. And,
Absolutely.
you know, and so
this guy narcs.
This guy's
Don't
guy's a
snitch.
narc.
Don't snitch, man.
He's a fuck snitches.
Don't talk to cops.
I know. It's So, but there's another thing too here, right? That I wanted to talk about, and it's like the idea of the party or the one state or patriotism in general. These are symbols to shut down conversation.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're not a patriot, right? And it's the same thing that happens a lot of times with like the satanic panic and conspiracy theories, like Pizzagate and all this stuff. And it's like, don't you care about the children? The children are being abused. Innocent children are getting hurt. And like, while like, obviously no one wants to get innocent children hurt, what this is a tactic to shut down dissent and conversation.
Because that's what that is like an escalation of stakes to an unreasonable degree.
Right.
And it's almost never factually accurate, too.
No, it's not. And if you look at actually like the propaganda that led up to 1990 Desert Storm, they were using this idea that Iraqis were going into Kuwaiti hospitals and murdering children in the NICU, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out that never happened.
Right. Much like weapons of mass destruction.
Muslim, yeah. So it was just an excuse to go in to justify the war to the American people. Look at what the things are happening. And you saw the same thing. We talked about this before about colonial feminism when we talked about Heavenly Tyrant, right? This idea that, oh, we're going to justify going into Afghanistan by saving the women and children, even though we're bombing the living hell out of them.
Right.
So, but
what's our justification for Greenland and Venezuela right now?
Well, I think it's ultimately just about trying to go back to the old empire ways. But
no, there's not. But there's not like there's not a straw man or anything like that, is there? There's not like a fake reason we're doing it.
Well, they say resource. I mean, they're actually really saying what it's probably about.
Resources. Damn, they're just saying the
they're
quiet
not
part
even
loud. Okay,
okay. I mean, we don't even say the quiet part. We say it. Well, Trump says whatever he wants now.
That's the thing. He's got the dementia.
He's got
Yeah.
Right. So he's definitely losing his damn mind for sure. Whether it's from stroke or dementia or something, he's.
I mean, it's got to be all of it, right?
Well, and it's not only that. It's like. It's like Stephen Miller, who's probably really running a lot of the stuff.
Oh, yeah, Nosferatu, for sure.
Yeah, Nosferatu.
First we had Emperor Palpatine with George Bush, and now we got Nosferatu.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know.
These creeping bald motherfuckers, man.
Yeah, that's right.
I shouldn't say shit like that. I have a full head of hair in my 40s, you know.
Yeah, me too.
I know, right?
Sorry, guys.
We're blessed.
Not blessed by much, but we're blessed by that.
Yeah.
Let's see the other notes here. There's a really interesting thing because it is so childish and immature, and I wanted to talk about this in particular because it's an interesting thing. Like, what if you are in your 30s and you really experience infatuation for the first time? And it basically just creates these. I mean, it's incels. It's sexist expectations.
Absolutely.
You've never had anything but longing, and suddenly, all of a sudden, you have a connection with somebody, and it becomes kind of,
Well, he never really experienced longing either, did he? Because the thing was, as soon as he was sexually able to procreate, I'm sure they were pairing him up with people. That's why he was in a throuple in the first place, and. Then when he meets a cool girl, when Ramona Flowers roller skates her way into his life, he's just he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Unlike Scott Pilgrim, well, actually kind of like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, in a way Scott Pilgrim is very much about the longing and the chasing, the infatuation.
Yeah, and then eventually, but the thing is Scott Pilgrim grows up.
Right. Well, that's the point of him leveling up in the whole story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So.
This guy doesn't do that, though. And that's why he's a frustrating protagonist, because he's constantly confused but never asking questions. He's constantly longing but never acting on his longings. He's constantly like debasing himself by being a fuckboy, and then he just succeeds at the end.
Yeah,
It really sucks.
There's no consequences for anything he does. He gets
no, because
everything
he's
he
so
wants.
special.
Yeah, he's a special little boy.
And that's what it is. It's like there should be stakes in this. There should be like Winston Smith level stakes, but there aren't. And every other book we've read, like if people make the wrong choice in these totalitarian situations, I'm sorry, every book we've read for this podcast, every time they make a choice, it could be their last. And he makes like 12 of those in this book, and they're not.
And they're not even like he tries to steal and crash the spaceship, and he
Use
wakes up
the
in his
thrusters
warm
on the
bed.
fucking Capitol.
Yeah.
That's their plan.
Yeah.
Is they're gonna fucking use a jet engine, I'm sorry, a rocket ship's engine to like melt the fucking Capitol, and they don't do it.
And there's no consequences.
And then there's no consequences. I mean, they attempt to do it and they don't succeed. But yeah, wow, it's bonkers, man.
I think also too, just like in that vein, thinking about like, okay, so this society suppresses certain kinds of emotions in a lot of ways, and it's also like, I think it's really important to think about what kind of emotions and for which populations are suppressed in our own society. You know,
I like that.
So like toxic masculinity is a great example.
Yeah.
Men have their emotions oppressed.
The only emotions we're allowed to feel are like anger and maybe frustration, because that's like a good political motivator.
I think we're allowed to feel resentment too.
Oh, we're encouraged to feel resentment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you know,
those are the male emotions.
That's right, and
the
desire to dominate
and
too.
catharsis, like in victory, I think, which is why we're so often funneled towards sports. Although sports are great, I'm not going to try to take sports away.
You like sports?
I love sports.
I'm not a sports person. But there's nothing wrong with sports. It's
No.
just that's very much where some of the energy is kind of channeled.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our
it's a healthier outlet for the.
It's a healthier outlet, but it also is like very monetizable, and they've really cracked the code on that by allowing betting apps to proliferate to the ends of the earth and back.
Right, which is, I mean, who was I listening to? They were I can't remember which person they were talking about it. It's a kind of economic nihilism, which I thought was a real interesting way of putting.
Ooh, economic nihilism. I like that.
Yeah. So it's the idea that there is no future. The economy is going to crash.
Yeah.
The 1% controls everything.
Sure.
So a lot of like people who are younger generation are like, I'm just going to bet on everything. And that bet includes like crypto. Those bets include all the sports betting. Yeah. And so it's just like their whole life is a casino, which kind of fits in with all of the, you know, it's very much nihilistic. It's like, fuck it, I'm going to do,
absolutely.
I'm going to do, you know, and guys, we cannot afford to be nihilistic.
No, absolutely not. No.
Like that's how totalitarianism wins.
Yeah.
Every time is because you get a bunch of people to be like, I don't have the time or energy to deal with this. It's going to go however the fuck it is. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just going to live my life. And that's also why like a lot of people are like, I don't want to have a kid, because they don't want to bring the kid into this terrible future. But it's like, well, you can make it.
Yeah. Well, or alternately, like, I think there are a lot of like very rational ways. I'm sorry. I think people are choosing, especially millennials, but probably Gen Z now too, because the older Gen Zs are definitely really like of the age where people might be expecting them to start thinking about having babies. Mm-hmm. My wife and I, we put off attempting to have children. Basically, we're just on birth control until like 2018, 2019, because you know, when we were in our 30s, because like, it just didn't seem feasible. We didn't understand the math of how we were supposed to be having a baby.
Yeah.
And we got to a point where we would theoretically be able to have a baby. It just didn't work out for us. But we know a lot of people in that same boat who were like our age, and we're just like, well, you know, like we have like $100 extra at the end of the month. We don't know what to do about that. And then they got to the point in their lives where they were financially able to, but then they're like, we're in our mid-30s now. Like, do we really want to get into that now?
Yeah,
Do we have the energy to like commit to that now?
And and I'm not trying to say that like people not having children is all nihilism. Anybody, there's lots of reasons.
No,
people don't.
it's like,
it's one of the flavors of what's going on.
Absolutely, it's next door to it. It's like proto-nihil. It's not proto-nihilism. It's like, if you're on a spectrum, it's like one or two tiers down from it. It's like maybe pessimism, you know? It's just like, but that's all a result of like avaricious capitalists, like taking all of the resources for themselves. So, you know, people who would, under normal circumstances, my wife and I absolutely wanted to have children. And we know a lot of people who feel the same way. And it didn't happen merely because things were so grueling and so hard. You know, one is like a trainee chocolatier or an adjunct professor, where we just like, we were grinding, man. We were, and not rising and grinding in the fucking tech bro way, but like, we were literally just like, we had our noses to the grindstone trying to make a life for ourselves and didn't have the money or the time to like think about getting into that, because we knew as children of divorce that raising kids is fucking hard, and we just didn't see a feasible way. And there, I think that's the story behind the falling birth rates in our country
and worldwide.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Europe.
Where does
all
it start?
Of fucking Western Europe is in the same boat.
Yeah, and Japan is where
Japan led the way.
Japan led the way.
Yeah.
And you look at those, there's hyper work schedules, there's all of these different systems in place that make it really hard to live. Yeah. I mean, you know, I just went and had 4 kids because, you know.
You were raised Catholic.
I was raised Catholic. You know, my family has a huge amount of kids. My dad has got 14 siblings. So, you know, it's, I was just, you know, we were just, so it's a different kind of experience. But
it was just expected of you.
It was expected of me. Yeah. So that's how I was raised. And I love my kids, of course. But
several of them are very cool. Yeah. You guys figure out who you are.
So, yes, they're all really cool. But I am biased, of course.
Yeah.
And I do think that, like, a lot of this kind of back to, like, the nationalism, the patriotism, this kind of imagined past and identity thing is very much at the core of this, along with the question of, like, what does happiness really even mean?
Yeah, for them in this book, happiness is like a life without
struggle
or unexpected stresses,
right,
or internal contradiction.
Well, that's like the timetables, right? So they have these really strict schedules and timetables. So this is an autistic paradise almost in some ways.
Don't we all like?
We all want certainty and comfort and all those kinds of things, but at the same time, like, you know, having unexpected, wonderful surprises is good, and also like suffering. You know, life cannot be perfect. We don't live in a perfect world. And to just paper over it's like toxic positivity, to paper over everything that, oh, it's naturally perfect and wonderful. And no, guys, it's just chill, just good vibes only, that kind of stuff. That is extremely unhealthy. And usually those are the people who have like total mental breakdowns at some point.
Absolutely.
Or like end up in like, you know, terrible situations because they've just ignored the problems when they were small because no, good vibes only.
Well, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever been on a cruise with someone who's like a hyper planner. That can be fun for a couple of days where you've got your whole thing scheduled, booked out, and it's all like pleasant things to do. Mm-hmm. But eventually you're going to get exhausted by just not having a moment to yourself, a chance to breathe. They clearly build this into the system by giving each person like 3 hours a day where they can just do whatever thing that they want that's also like state approved. But I mean, I don't know, man. My most fun vacations are just going to a city and wandering around and experiencing it and stumbling upon cool moments, you know, just like a nice moment, you know, where you, have time to yourself and you can think and reflect and immerse yourself in a new place.
Meet someone really cool.
Meet someone really cool, or just hang out with your best friend or whatever. But like, planned things can be nice for short bursts of time. I don't think any human who's not extremely autistic thrives in those situations.
Yeah.
Which is why extremely autistic people should be allowed to plan things as much as they like. But it's a choice thing.
Yeah.
And what the benefactor is saying is that choice and freedom are what bring about sadness. I would say that is antithetical.
Yeah.
To the facts.
Well, and like the depths, and it's very much true. The depths of joy that you can know correspond to the amount of suffering you've experienced.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you can see incredible beauty so much more easily and more in simple ways if you have just been through it.
That's the moral of every Toni Morrison novel.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what that's all about. Like, extreme joy arising out of like a relief from extreme desperation and depredation.
We should definitely read one of hers at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so, and then, oh, and of course, when he goes to see the benefactor, he gives him the inevitable, well, you got to break an egg to get some omelets kind of speech. Like,
right?
It's just, yeah, the inevitable sign of truth is cruelty. And I felt like that is so relevant to our political moment.
Yeah.
Is that, well, we're going to maybe get some of these immigrants who are innocent, but you got to break a few eggs to get an omelet, right?
We might shoot a couple natural born American citizens in the street to round up all those criminals that don't actually exist.
Or, a 5-year-old, put them in a detention center.
Yeah, man. That's what you gotta do to protect freedom.
Oh, God, yeah.
Is imprison children. For no reason.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple, I wrote a couple things down.
Yeah.
Thoughts about the book.
What do you got?
I wrote them in a couple different places, like you do. So, yeah. I thought that this was a potentially impressive achievement in futuristic fictive forecasting, marred by an over-reliance on the unhinged, surrealistic perspective of the narrator, and that perhaps it's a realistic depiction of how a human would react to circumstances so outlandish if they were if their status quo was challenged. But his lack of curiosity towards the actual situation surrounding him and his fixation on the cool girl leader of the rebellion has a consequence of keeping the reader trapped in this horny, overly political brain, which is tedious.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much sexism and frankly racism
too, we've barely touched on. I was going to say that this book also has an interesting relationship to race. The constant comments about R13's African lips in his spitting when he speaks and the way he bounded in the riot scene was really distasteful, I thought. It made me feel gross.
Did they use African lips in your translation?
African lips everywhere.
That's not the translation that I got.
Yeah.
There was some N-word use.
Ooh, man. Only one time in mine. Also his loathing, D503's loathing of his body hair, really felt coded towards Jewish people. And I didn't like that very much either, and especially that it turns out that they may be genetically related to Neanderthals. I thought that was wild. The astonishing number of times information about the plot or anything at all was hinted at and then left to be explained tomorrow was the worst kind of edging I've ever experienced. And maybe this is too mean, but I thought I-330 was so much more interesting than D503. It really felt like a waste for her to not be in the POV character.
She should have been the main character.
She should have been the main character, absolutely. And if this wasn't a Mary Sue situation, I'm sure she would have been. Mm-hmm. If he was a very good writer, he would have made her the protagonist. Mm-hmm. I think that's really a frustration that I think born out of a common approach to storytelling. Main characters do tend to be bland and ignorant so that we can project ourselves onto them and so that they can receive information. But D503 is incompetent as a narrator as well, because he's so unquestioning that you never receive any information about what is actually going on.
Yeah, he doesn't question the cool girl, and he doesn't question the state either.
No, he questions nothing.
It's like he's like on a fucking surfboard riding along, and
he's a MAGA chode, man.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I haven't experienced a narrator that frustrating since the one in The Magus by John Fowles. And I thought that this book might have been an expression of cognitive dissonance. It really feels conflicted about its message. Oh, it's one long allegory. That was the conclusion I came to at the very end, and that is the worst kind of narrative fiction, I think.
Well, it's the laziest, right?
By far,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it just sucks to read.
Yeah, so
tedious is how I would describe this book.
Yeah, I don't think either of us would necessarily, unless you're like just kind of a big book person and you want to kind of study literary history.
The only reason to read this book is if you're writing a thesis paper about the influence that this guy might have had on Huxley or any of the dystopian,
Right. If you're looking at a history of dystopia.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say it's necessarily worth it for a history of science fiction.
No.
And I've literally taught that topic.
Sure.
But like, yeah, I mean, I had not even heard of it in reading and there was a reason I had not heard of it.
Yeah.
Very clearly now.
Mm-hmm.
It just does not hold up.
I don't think so. That being said, someone on Reddit called it a really digestible dystopian fiction, and I was blown away by that. So, I mean, clearly we're not like, clearly there are other takes out there, but both of us said shit to each other for 3 weeks about this book specifically.
And, like,
it's not like we didn't talk or anything like that. It didn't come up, and that is, I think, the first time that's happened.
Yeah, normally we text each other back and forth like, "Oh, dude, did you read that scene yet?
Oh, what about this? What is your take on that?"
Yeah, right.
We try not to spoil it too much, but we definitely like to get like a vibe check.
Yeah.
No,
we didn't text each other at all. Like this, I was almost like I would pick it up, read a chapter, and be like, ugh.
And they're like 4 pages long.
I know.
The chapters, we were biting off this really, like, just tiny chunks.
You can read a chapter in 10 minutes and you're done.
And you're done. You're like, I don't think I want to do any more of that.
So, yeah, and like, guys, I mean, you're probably a little bit more, maybe not snobbish, but you're a little bit more literarily inclined than I am. I'm not picky about books. If it has entertained me, I call it a win.
That same. And I feel like that's been the case for every book we've read so far.
Yeah.
I wasn't super entertained by It Could Happen Here or It Could Never Happen Here. I don't even remember.
It can't happen here.
It can't happen here. I was struggling to remember the plot of that book the other day, but I did. I did remember the incidents in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple of moments in that book where the stakes are sufficient enough and the consequences are sufficient enough that you do feel pity for the character.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't give a shit about this guy.
I didn't give a shit about this.
If he died at the end, I was all like, I mean, I was kind of almost hoping.
I wanted something to happen.
Something significant. But
dude, instead, like, the best character in the book. Well, actually, the best character in the book might be the one who gets away at the end. Might be 090.
Oh, yeah.
I also really liked R13, and he got done dirty. Not just by the plot of the book, but by, like, just disappearing from the fucking narrative.
Well, and then he finds him dead in the street at one point.
That's right, he does, and says some dirty shit and steps over his body.
Yep.
Fuck that guy, man. God damn it.
So yeah, I think the next book we're going to read we should like. I mean, it did win a Pulitzer Prize in 2024, so I would imagine
Pulitzer Prize is one of the more respectable prizes.
One of the more respectable for writers.
Yeah.
So yeah, next time we're going to be reading James.
Yes.
Which is a retelling of Huck Finn from the point of view of the escaped slave.
Yeah.
I am going to be, because I have not read it since middle school, rereading Huck Finn.
Oh shit! Really?
I've not reread it since.
You said you were rereading it. I didn't know you were rereading it for the first time in 30 years.
For the first time in 30 years, man. So I was like, I mean, I grew up watching the Disney adaptation of Huck Finn.
Oh wait, the one
action.
with Devon Sawa and the boy from Home Alone.
Yeah. So I
great.
grew up watching that, so I was well acquainted with the plot, and I remembered, the thing I remember from that movie is the tar and feathering, and then I saw Carnival, to where they actually did tar and feathering.
It's so bad.
And I did no idea until I saw Carnival, the HBO dark fantasy series. That was amazing, but was canceled before it got really awesome.
That wasn't the one by Joss Whedon, was it?
No.
Okay, good.
No. It was, I don't remember who did it, but it's Dust Bowl fantasy.
Okay.
There's a force of light, a force of darkness, and they're kind of hunting each other. It is extremely dark magic. I love it. I love that kind of stuff, which is it's like anyway. But they have a tar and feather incident in that, and I had the Huck Finn one kind of papers over it, and I was like, oh, it's not that bad. And then I saw this, and I was like, and then I looked it up, and I was like, oh wow. Tar and feathering is probably one of the worst possible things you could do to another human.
Because it happens super casually on The Simpsons at one point, I think too. Someone gets tarred and feathered, and it's I mean, it might be Grandpa Simpson. He's like, oh no, but no, dude, it
burns your skin off.
You get third-degree burns, and then your skin falls off. It fucking sucks.
So anyway,
there are fourth. I don't even know how many degrees. It burns your skin so much that it falls off.
Yeah, you have no skin left.
Yeah.
But anyway. That's a nice way of saying, first I'm going to read Huck Finn real quick because it's not a very long, and then this one isn't terribly long either, so.
I mean, Huck Finn's it's a longish book.
It's 300 pages.
Yeah. It's a good read, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm already into it.
Have the N-word throughout.
It does.
But Mark Twain, man. I love Mark Twain. I understand why people find him problematic, but I feel like he was such a humanist and such a literary talent that it's just an engaging read no matter what form you find it in. I most recently, I've read it 3 or 4 times, but most recently I read a manga translation of it, or adaptation, I should say. And it was, I mean, it's delightful. It really doesn't hold back on its criticism of the status quo in general. That is what Huck Finn is experiencing throughout. Is running into the status quo and just questioning everything, which I feel is such an antithesis to this.
Yeah. So, and then did we decide what we were going to read a Vonnegut novel after that?
It was Mother Night.
It was Mother Night.
Yeah. I think we said we were going to do a different one last time. I think we're saying
we were talking about Slaughterhouse 5, but I think Mother Night fits our purposes.
I think it's it fits into the niche that we're doing a little harder.
Yeah. So if you don't know, Mother Night, so that'll be not the next one, but the following after.
6 weeks from now.
6 weeks from now. That one is about it is a sardonic dark comedy about a man who was a really important spy for the American and European allies during the Second World War, but he was also a very famous Nazi propagandist at the same time, and only 2 people knew that he was actually a spy. One of them was the President of the United States.
This is so an interesting. I don't know how many people who watch this channel are also into B tier Robert Ludlum books, but he had a series towards the end of his life called Covert One, in which a character named John Smith is a super, super, super top secret spy. He is Covert One, and the only person who knows, there's 2 people who know he's a super spy. One of them is the president, who was a senator from New Mexico, which I always really love because that's a bordering state to ours that I really love. And 2 is his mission, his handler, He is the guy from Mother. It's what if John Smith from Covert One, was doing Nazi shit, was embedded in the Nazi government, and then both the people who know he exists. When you told me the premise of this book, I was I'm hyped for it. It's a dark take on one of my favorite series from when I was a teenager.
And it's also just like a lesser known Vonnegut novel. Like most people think of Sirens of Titan, or they think of Cat's Cradle, or
Yeah.
Breakfast of Champions, but it's
Slaughterhouse Five,
Slaughterhouse Five, all those ones.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And I thought it was about time to do a Vonnegut novel.
Absolutely.
So that's our next 2 episodes. James will be 3 weeks from tonight,
Mm-hmm.
and Mother Night will be 6 weeks from tonight.
I better go get that. I'll buy that one. I didn't buy this, and I'm so fucking glad.
Yeah, me neither. So
Yeah.
Gutenberg, I got it. Project Gutenberg.
Nice. I'm sad you got the lesser translation. You might have liked it a little bit. I didn't like it though.
Yeah.
Like this was a good translation. There were moments of poetic beauty.
I'm not sure even some. I'm not even sure some like poetic.
But like just pops here and there, not enough to make it worth reading. For
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll see you next time.
I have to say, I'm sorry, guys. There is beautiful art based on the settings in this book. You can look it up and find those. It's like different covers for the different editions that were published. You know, like the Czech version and the French version, and shit like that.
Well, and
they're really pretty.
In fairness, a lot of the ideas he's playing with are super interesting. He just doesn't actualize them.
Exactly, and he doesn't spend enough time describing them. Mm-hmm. People definitely had to like imagine what he was talking about, like the arrows, like the little planes that go around. Mm-hmm. One person imagined them looking essentially like the little jets that like the Avengers have, the
Quinjets.
The Quinjets, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt the ending there.
No, that's all right.
All right. All right. Slant Shava, guys.
Yep. See you next time. Okay.
Oh man, brutal.